what happened to the sentry milk-vetch, or if there really was ever more than just the plants at Maricopa Point. So pretty much in about 1973, the plant was noticed to be rare, and it was proposed as a Category 1 candidate because it was known at one location, which was pretty much the location that Barnaby had seen it at, which was just at Maricopa Point. It was in very poor condition. The plants are very small. It was a very popular overlook, and they were really trampled on. And there were very, very few individuals out there. The species was listed as endangered in 1990, particularly because it was known nowhere else in the world, and there were at that point in time less than 200 plants in existence. In 1988, the park began to do work with Fish and Wildlife on permanent monitoring plots, and they found out that more than half of the plants out there had serious damage from trampling. In 1990, once it was ascertained that the plants couldn't stand being trampled, a fence was put up to protect them, and then later on some wire was put on it to really assure that people didn't go over the fence. And after that, the plant really had some boom years. The population went up from 150 to 683. When I started at the park about 4 years ago, there were about 420 of them, and people were kind of worried because it was down a lot. And then now last year there were 525 at Maricopa Point. So that one population seems to be holding pretty steady. After the discovery, well, after the species was listed, people at the park vegetation program began to survey for the plant. One employee, Darren Taylor, just loved to hike, and he surveyed a huge stretch of rim from way west of Hermit's Rest and all the way out to pretty much close to Desert View. And Darren discovered 2 new populations of the plant. One of them at Grandview Point had, I think at the time they found it, they said 3 individuals. And then it's kind of another mystery because over the years, different botanists have gone out there and found between 0 and 6 of these plants. And some years nobody finds them, so it may just be they were going to the wrong location because they're perennial, they don't go away. At Lollipop Point, which is also on the East Rim, there are 4 separate kind of subpopulations of the plant, and they're really hard to find. They tend to be very, very close to the edge and also way out on limestone kind of spits extending out into the canyon. And so Theron found all of those. At the time that I came to the park, it was thought that there were about 40 plants at Lollipop Point and about 0 to 6 plants at Grandview, but it seems like the numbers are a lot higher than that, and so that's a really encouraging thing. There's also a North Rim population of the plant found, and that's near Cape Final. A lot of people thought it was the same species. Looks exactly like sentry milk-vetch, and for a while they just called it North Rim sentry milk-vetch, but genetic studies have been done, and it's shown to be a different species. It's about impossible to tell, however, without doing genetic studies. It looks exactly the same. It has the same flowers, it has the same growth form, it has pretty much the same habitat, and the only real difference is that it has black seeds, where the sentry milk-vetch on the South Rim has yellow seeds, but it is going to get a new name. Since there are less than 1,000 of the North Rim milk-vetch, that is also, once that's published, it will be considered another rare species and endemic to the park, meaning it exists no place else. And it will be probably rare, but I don't believe it's threatened or endangered. We check that population every year just to make sure nobody's camping there, nobody's hiking there, it's not getting any visitor impacts, it's not being impacted by fire, and we work with resources in the park to keep things away from it. And so it seems like it's going to be rare, but probably neither threatened nor endangered. In 2006, there was a recovery plan put together by U.S. Fish and Wildlife, And it's a really great document. It kind of gives the whole history of the plant, documents all the work that's been to date. We're currently working to lead the recovery plan actions on our own species. Prior to us taking over on that, the Arboretum at Flagstaff did most of the work, but having it done in-house at the canyon means that we can do things that take more than an occasional visit. We can be really efficient about our use of time because we're right there already. We don't have to drive for hours every time we want to work on the species. And so since the recovery plan has come out, we've taken the lead with the species. And the goal of the plan is that for downlisting, we would need to have 4 populations of at least 1,000 plants each that are either stable or increasing. And to delist the species, we'd need to have 10 populations of the plants stable or increasing. So I think that I'm hoping within my lifetime to accomplish the downlisting, but I think the delisting can take some serious time. So right now on the South Rim, there are pretty much 3 locations. We call them the Maricopa Point, the Lollipop, and the Grandview populations. Maricopa Point was about 528 individuals last year. Lollipop, we had a discovery of some new plants, and it's up to 2,095 individuals, so that was a giant leap. And Grandview, starting a couple of years ago, we found a separate location with more plants, and there are about 15 known individuals of that group now, which might mean that there are actually more seeds in the ground. The seeds can hold a lot of genetic diversity even when you have had a population bottleneck with only 15 individuals there. And pea family seeds are known to sometimes live up to 100 years. And so there actually could be the start of a viable population there, but I don't think that will ever provide one of our 4 populations of 1,000 individuals. This is a picture of the Grandview population. That was the one that was known for years. And you can see it's pretty much one big limestone rock, and the gray in the picture in the cracks is the sentry milk-vetch. And here it's pretty much mixed in with some other grasses and native plants. And that may be why the numbers go up. I'm not quite sure how you could have a year where you didn't see any plants there at all. But it's pretty easy to find. Once you find the rock, there the plants are. 2 years ago, we were being a little bit braver than some of our previous surveyors, and we looked down below, and lo and behold, there was a ledge, and even I could climb down to it. So we climbed down to that ledge, not too scary for most people, me a little scary. And there we found, at that point in time, another 10 plants growing down there and spread out along the ledge. And it made us begin to think, well, this is probably what's happening all over with this plant. You see them at the top, and then some of the seeds are falling down below, and they're just not places we can get to. And so we decided, well, we need to start looking more. I talked about the survey, and it had been, we went down on all the ledges when we surveyed, but then I talked to people about Theron, and Theron's just not a climber at all. So I think that there is potential that he didn't climb down and that they didn't really feel safe looking. And so hopefully we'll find some more plants below the rim. But this is a really dramatic looking picture, but really there's another ledge below us and it's not very scary. This is the kind of terrain you get on the lollipop population. So you can see, I'm just amazed anyone could ever find these plants, because it's not like they're on every little island sticking out there. They're only on a few of them, and they're not on many of them. And some of them you have to go down at least a 6 or 8 foot climb to a different level to find them. But this is what lollipop looks like. And lollipop isn't an actual place. I think it got its name because the way the rocks are shaped, it kind of looks like a lollipop tree at the dominant place there. And then this shows some more of them. The picture up top, you can see just the little low-growing mat. You can see how dwarfed a pinyon pine is growing with it. And then the picture on the right there is Christy Sorrell, who was quite a climber and a backpacker, and she went out last year, and she was pretty much the person who found 3 new locations below the existing populations, 2 and 3, and I think even 4 levels down on the limestone ledges, and they estimated there were about 2,000 plants out there. So that was where we got the huge growth in the number of plants last year. These are pictures of the North Rim Astragalus, and I think you can see, I can't tell the difference. I go up there and look at it and go, hard to believe you're a different species. You can see, though, a little bit different habitat in some of the locations. It's got a lot of areas of really crumbly limestone, and the one on the North Rim even grows in a little bit of shade, which I've almost never seen on the South Rim. There is another of the North Rim locations, so you can see there where the flags are is where individual plants are. It's got the agave kind of indicating it's there in the rocks. And then on the right-hand side, you can see that's a little North Rim Astragalus seedling there. So it's got pretty much 2 seed leaves, and it's just getting its first true leaf. At that point in time, it's probably about 1/8 of an inch tall. But they were coming up out there. We're not seeing a lot of disturbance in that population. So they seem, we monitor them every year and just make sure that the numbers are staying pretty steady. Since 1988, every year there's been a day of annual monitoring at Maricopa Point. Initially, it was set up as a demographic study. So in a demographic study, you start out with all the different life stages of a plant. You kind of do a mathematical model of all of the eventualities. So if I'm a seed, I can die, I can remain a seed, I can become a seedling, I can become a reproductive seedling. Those are probably your possibilities for a seed. If I'm a seedling, I can die, I can get to be a medium-sized plant, maybe I can reproduce. And you do these mathematical models that track what the future of your population is likely to be. And initially, when the demographic studies were done at Maricopa Point, it looked pretty bleak. There was, the big plants tend to produce the most seeds, and they contribute most to reproduction, and there weren't very many big plants. They had really been trampled and damaged. The small plants can be important because just the small size, because they're likely to get big and be reproductive. And the seedlings, you usually have to have a whole lot of seedlings before you get any plants that really can contribute to the population. And so the initial demographic studies for this population were really dire. But the good thing is that the numbers are slowly increasing every year. So it seems that fencing the plant probably got us out of that downward spiral. So that's a good thing, and it would be a great thing if we get to do a demographic study again and track it now. But right now we're getting pretty good seedling recruitment every year. We have a lot of mature plants, and we've got plants in all age classes. So all of that is going to be good for the future of this plant. These are just some of the pictures of people doing the monitoring. It's really a great project. We've used it a lot to have good relations with other agencies. We work with Fish and Wildlife on it. We work with Barb Phillips of the Forest Service, comes out almost every year and helps us and stays in touch with the plant. Bill Austin of Fish and Wildlife. Chris Haskins, Director of Research at the Arboreta, always comes. And this last year, we had help from about 4 of our Student Conservation Association interns too. And so one of the things we're really trying to do with our interns is get them all to the point where if they want to have some rare plant experience and plant conservation experience, even if they're working in invasive biology or if they're working in general restoration, that they can say that they've worked with an endangered species. And there's been a lot of enthusiasm for that. This picture is of Joyce Mashinsky, who did a lot of the original work with the plant, and she's currently one of the program leaders in plant conservation in Florida at Fairchild Botanic Gardens, but she worked with the species about 15 years. I took this picture of Joyce visiting the population because I had worked for her at the Arboretum growing the plant long, long ago, and I had never been able to visit the site with her, so she came out for a visit. And I invited her up to Maricopa Point, and she said, "Oh, I wonder if my babies are still there." And I said, oh, you're babies? And it turned out that back in 1988 and 1990, there were